had said, when I sent out my this week's Need to Know, that we'd be talking about Google's purchase of the Thompson Center. And I saw that Cranes did their Daily Gist podcast about it this morning.
Yeah, did you watch it?
I listened to it. Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of an amazing thing, and it just goes to show the power of your network, right? Because the Reschke's business partner, Quentin Primo, is friends with the guy from Google, and they happened to meet up at
I think years before the guy was ever at Google, right?
Oh yeah. They became friends. I think they worked on a project together or something like that. I don't know. Went to school together. I don't remember exactly how they became
It was
friends.
a minorities in business group. Yeah.
Minorities in business group.
Yeah.
Did you say?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So I mean, so they had remained friends, and I guess when this whole thing came up with Reschke and Primo's company buying the Thompson Center, initially with the idea that the state of Illinois would renovate the space and sell a portion of it back to the state. And I don't know, were they going to sell it or rent it back?
I think rent back.
Rent it back to them, right? And then this came up with Google and buying the whole building, and apparently Google is currently actively looking to expand their footprint in Fulton Market, and they need more space than they have. So it's quite a testament to Chicago that Google is interested in being in Chicago and expanding their footprint in Chicago. And one of the things they said in the podcast is that a lot of these companies, I mean, yes, the bad news always makes the headlines, right? That Boeing and Caterpillar and Citadel are all pulling out of Chicago. But by the same token, companies like Milwaukee Tool is just relocated into the old post office.
And a lot of corporate relocations incoming.
A lot of John Deere is putting their corporate headquarters over at Fulton Market. And their rationale is, yeah, there might be a lot of bad things happening in Chicago, but we need to be here because of the engineering talent. And what they were saying on the Cranes podcast is that that Chicago doesn't play up its pool of engineering talent that's available here, and companies like
not just engineering. We have the largest pool of like people with graduate degrees in the country. We have the largest pool. There's all sorts of the young worker force here is like no other place in the country, even East and West Coast. Yeah.
And sorry about that. And the young people don't want to be stuck out in the suburbs. They want to be downtown. They want to be, in River North or Fulton Market, and so it's yeah. I mean, the only things that ever make the newspapers, of course, is all the bad news and the shootings and the gangs and crime and all that stuff. But there's a lot of good news to be told too about Chicago, and this thing with Google is brilliant. And I mean, the deal gets even more convoluted because Reschke and his company ended up purchasing the old BMO Harris building. And now they're going to renovate that building and sell it back to the state as part of this deal, because now the state's not going to be in the Thompson Center anymore. They're going to move into the old BMO Harris building. So what a win-win for Reschke and Primo to not only have the renovation on Google on the Thompson Center, which they're estimating is going to be over $300 million to rehab, but to also be able to get the renovation project on the old BMO Harris building, which they picked up in foreclosure apparently. I don't know what happened to BMO Harris. Where did they go? I don't know.
Back to Montreal.
I think they, yeah, well, maybe back, yeah, maybe they downsized. I think I did read somewhere. I think they moved into smaller offices.
Yeah, they're kind of spread out across the country in smaller markets now. One of Stump's friends works for them. They've got a lot like in Phoenix and that kind of stuff. So they're kind of, yeah, spreading out. And most of them are like middle market places. But yeah, I'm actually like weirdly excited about this deal. I think it's a real change point or whatever for the city. And Cranes has said a lot about it, but most people aren't really paying attention. When I'm out and about talking with people, most people don't even know about it. And I'm like, this is huge. This is such a turning point. And how it all happened is fantastic and a great story. And how they had to like run behind the scenes and had days to figure it out and broker a deal on all different sides of it. And especially right after that article about Reschke had come out about
was that in Cranes, that article too?
Yeah, Western Cranes, yeah.
But he's so bullish on Chicago and
but also like how he's somebody that loves the art of the deal and how he's done it, and like just enjoys he's going to drop dead at his desk because he doesn't ever want to stop doing what he's doing. But I think it's really a huge thing, and it does so many things it's hard to even like get it all in, because it saves an architectural icon that nobody thought was going to be possible because it didn't make sense. Well, Google doesn't care. Google would rather have the icon be in the center of the city. It has the busiest transit stop in the city underneath it and connecting it to every direction. Their employees could live anywhere and easily get.
Well, as they said on the podcast, it's literally the heart of the transportation.
Sure. So it's done that, accomplished that which nobody thought was really possible. And not only are they going to fix the building, but not to like a minimal standard, to like the highest standards possible, the latest anything. You can
make it googly.
Make it googly. Incredible, but also it at a time when, not just because of the pandemic, but the loop was already changing, and the pandemic really sped that up. We've got this huge vacancy and nobody really knows what the future of the loop is going to be. Are they going to have to recreate it, what it's going to be? Well, Google has just answered the question now, because that shifts everything. And just like when they opened in Fulton Market, it completely changed that neighborhood. And now this is,
well, they were saying even when Google moved into when they acquired whatever it was in the Merchandise Mart, and now look at what happened at the Merchandise Mart. That got completely renovated when Google was there. What did they acquire?
Motorola. Yeah.
Motorola, thank you. Right, yeah.
But I think it's now we now have an answer about where the loop is going to go. And I think they had like 1,800 employees in the West Loop, and I know they haven't.
In Fulton Market, you mean? In Fulton Market.
Yeah, which is West Loop. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think most people feel that Fulton Market's a little pocket, but yes, right. Anyway.
Yeah, but anyway, I haven't seen their actual number, but just doing the math, it looks like the state had about 4,000 employees in the building. So we know it's kind of set up for that. And Google's taken the whole building. So assuming it's about the same, that's huge. Not only numbers of employees, but who those employees are, who are the people it's attracting, all the other tech companies that'll be attracting around it, who is going to be walking the streets of the loop every day.
Well, and the support services too, to support all of those people.
That's why the restaurants, the stores, all of that stuff that's that's dying because nobody's there. It's not only going to.
I mean, there's not even like when we go downtown, when we used to still go to our closings, and you'd go downtown for a closing, it's like hard to find a place to even grab a sandwich other than a fast food place. If you wanted to go and sit down and like take a client out for lunch after a closing, it was hard to even find a place to do that.
Yeah.
downtown.
Well, the clothing stores closed, all the big ones are pulling out of State Street, all that. It's really going to change the direction, and I think in the best possible way. I mean, if they had a bunch of banks that relocated down there, it wouldn't make the impact that Google would. It wouldn't change the direction of the loop, the way that Google will. I think this is such the best possible scenario that nobody could have even dreamed up if it hadn't kind of just fallen in their lap the way it did.
Well, I mean, obviously, Quentin and whoever the guy from Google is, whose name escapes me, but they apparently, when they started talking about it, they must have had the vision, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. They didn't even say that. They just kind of started looking for space. And this
Well,
was
Google
just,
has been looking for space because Google is outgrowing its space in Fulton Market, and
And to
they're
be fair,
saying
they're
that
looking
now.
for
I mean, that
space all over the
Google is
country.
still active because this won't be ready. The Thompson Center won't be ready for them until 2025. They can't wait that long, so they're actually actively looking to grow their footprint right now.
Yeah.
Because they're growing, yeah. So that's really, I mean, it's just a huge stamp.
And I think it's such a perfect building for them too. It's such a perfect building for them. Yeah. So I think it's
well, and then in the podcast they were talking about how Google has a huge real estate footprint all over the country, actually, in New York and all over the country, and
they're expanding everywhere too. Yeah.
So, but I mean, what a huge stamp of approval for the workforce in Chicago, right? Yeah. I mean,
and I know that the Cranes writer said it's definitely the biggest real estate transaction in 20 years. And I've heard somebody else say, the biggest one in a generation. But I just don't think the general public realizes what a huge thing this is and how it's really,
well, it's going to totally change the whole, as you've been saying, it's going to totally change the whole character of the downtown. And
yeah, which then
we will 20 years we will look back to this transaction and say this is when that,
yeah, because and where the loop goes, the city goes, and so it's going to affect everything, I think, for Chicago. So I think it's really, really huge.
Yeah, even though I think some political people would argue that point, but
They're wrong.
It's still the reality, right? So yeah, so very exciting for us local Chicagoans.
But it's kind of funny because I'm walking around feeling like I've got this secret that I know, because anytime I brought it up with people, they didn't even know about the transaction, much less, have any idea what the impact is. And I feel like I'm kind of walking around giddy, like with this secret that I know what's happening, and it's good.
That kind of amazes me. I mean, what do people pay attention? Well, never mind. They have busy lives, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of things that I don't pay attention to that people.
Well, that's true. That's true. For sure, that's true. I mean, we are.
And I'm definitely a Chicago proponent, and we both work in real estate, which is affected by all of this. So I'm paying attention to this more than, some things, not to mention architecture and, urban.
Well, and I think the thing that's so amazing about this huge deal, I mean, it's just so amazing how it just came out of the blue. I mean, there was no, I assume that there had been months and months of backroom negotiations that they had done really done a really good job of not leaking, because if they leaked it, Google would have been out. But it wasn't even that. It just came together in like no time. It's just amazing.
Well, the part we didn't say was
it's a kind of story that they should make a movie out of, really.
Well, what we didn't say was that there was already a deal that was signed and done by the developers that were, had buying the Thompson Center and redoing it. They had already had a contract with the state.
Right.
Those people in there, and they could no longer perform on that contract if they were going through with this
Yeah,
deal.
they had to go to the state and say, you don't care. I mean, well, and then they had the deal on the foreclosure with where the BMO Harris
It
was.
was a balancing act. It was a real balancing act. Yeah. And they only had
They had
days.
to go, they had to go to the state and say, look, how about if we put you, and then they're actually selling the building back to the state. So it's the deal is the state is getting 30 million in cash and 75 million. They valued the BMO Harris building at 75 million. So the total deal is 105 million. For the state to, and the state will then, instead of renting space, will own their space and consolidate. I guess currently they're renting spaces all over the downtown area, and they'll be able to consolidate everybody under one roof. Then all of the state employees will be in one location now. And I think I read last week, might have been in the Tribune, that the state is just signed a new lease on a new space to put some of their people, because they needed to find a place to put them. So, but again, the BMO Harris building won't be ready for another year. I think it'll take them to rehab that building for the state. So yeah, and then the Google build, then the Thompson Center won't be ready for 3 years, 2025. So, I mean, they're going to take it out. They're going to take it out, as we say in the industry, to the studs and start over again. So massive renovation of that space. So yeah,
It'll be exciting to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah, it will. So, and in other news, I mean, the feds did raise their interest rate. Of course, the short-term rate has less of an effect on mortgages than short-term credit. The Fed prime is really about short-term credit cards and auto loans and short-term debt rather than mortgages. But the fact that the feds didn't raise the rate as high as the experts had anticipated, they raised it 3/4 of a point, and many analysts expected them to raise it over a point or even more. And when they came out last week and only raised it 3/4 of a point, that raise had already been factored into the bond market. So interest rates. What are you laughing at? I'm getting too geeky. Is that what you're saying?
I was falling asleep. I'm sorry.
Well, anyway, the point being is that mortgages mid-June jumped up from they were at 5% and jumped up to 6.5%. I mean, it was like this, and everybody freaked out, and they're back down. Interest rates, mortgages are back down to around 5.5%, 5 1/8, 5 1/4.
There you go. There's the punchline.
There's the punchline. Yeah. And I know that I've got some buyers that are finally starting to come back out into the market again and getting into contracts. I mean, prices have leveled off a bit. They haven't, I wouldn't say that they've gone down really, but they've leveled off. They're not rising at the same rate that they were. And so I think it's a good time for buyers to jump into the market now. I mean, the rates should hold for the rest of the year, but who knows what's going to happen? I don't think we're ever going to see 3% interest rates again on a 30-year fixed. I mean, who knows, right? Anything could happen, right?
Yeah, well, it's pretty.
I mean, what are you seeing in the market? Are you seeing the buyers starting to come back out, or?
It seems about the same to me, and I noticed Carr said that Chicago area home prices are still rising, just not at the rate that they were. But so I don't know what that data is, but I guess that's not surprising to me.
I mean, I think everybody that we listen to on our Zoom calls and whatnot are talking about the market softening across the country, that they're not seeing the feeding frenzy that we had in the spring. so that the sellers have to be a little bit more realistic about their pricing, and you know, they can't shoot for the moon. They have to be more realistic. So I think it is a slight shift towards a buyer's. I wouldn't say it's a buyer's market because there's still not enough inventory. But the rates have come back down, and they should hold steady, and there's a slight uptick in inventory. Why are you laughing at me?
Nothing.
What do you want to talk about?
But we're way over our time. So
We are?
yeah.
Well, you didn't get out until 11:15.
Yeah, but we go for 20 minutes. Remember?
All right, everybody. Lollapalooza's behind us. We can go back downtown again. Have a good week. Enjoy the summer weather. Welcome to August.
Bye.